Am I the Christ today. I'm always so excited when we do these shows. I'm Kerri McKenna, as you know.
And I'm Jeremy Armstrong.
That's right. And our topic for today is going to be sharing our burdens, which I'm excited that you chose to bring that topic to the table, because with Coffee in Christ, we talk a lot about, the stories in the Bible, and it all goes back to really our stories in life too, and how sharing our stories with one another and our burdens help one another grow, not just individually, but spiritually.
Yes, exactly. Well, it came about, it seemed like this past month, everything encounters with other people I came into is everybody just felt burdened. They was expressing their burdens, whether it's physical burden or an emotional burden. Because living in this world, we tend to compound ourselves with physical burdens.
Oh, yeah.
And I was speaking with my wife the other night, and one of the main burdens that we go through is like your mortgage, your job, your children. And the crazy thing is those all started as blessings.
Yeah,
you know?
That's true. That's very true.
Every one of those started as a blessing.
Yeah.
And because of the lives that we lead, we tend to turn those same things that we went on our knees and prayed for.
Wow, yeah.
And we turn those into burdens.
Yeah.
You thank God that He was able to give you that house or that job and that child, and you let the world compound it on you to turn that into a burden. The mortgage is a burden, when in fact it should be a true blessing that you're able to pay that money to shelter your family.
That's right.
Children. This is one thing that's becoming more in line to me with my children and how I see other people view their children. The burdens that they put on themselves for their children, and not to say it's bad, because it's all in your perception of that and how you react in those moments, because that's all it is. The whole life is these little frames of moments that we live in, but taking your kids here, or having to run them here, or having to do this for them and this for them, and viewing them, am I helping them get their grades good? Are they grades? Are they going to be successful? Are they athletic? Are they this? And the true success is how close have you been able to guide them to God, and try to direct it in that way, and everything else kind of loses a little bit of importance whenever you're able to direct it in that path of God. And then I truly believe those burdens will be able in our human eyes to turn back into the blessings that we originally prayed for them in the first place. But through this is talking, and because of how God made us, we are a community people, just like with Peter and Paul. Anytime I love Peter, and just because he was a fiery guy, you had to love Peter. And Paul, it was all about community.
Yeah.
And God made us to be a social people.
Oh, and how true that is. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's a very important part, because I think society as a whole, we become way more introverted than we were ever supposed to be. And we tend to carry our own burdens and hold them inside. And then that can breed other emotional problems, guilt, strife, envy, depression.
Yeah.
But when you're able to have that community and that sharing, like what touched me about you bringing this up is I was like, wow, that's a really awesome way to share and touch so many different people beyond just what we're able to touch in our community through this media.
Right.
We're able to share that burden even more, and because this is medicine for us. I know you've been through a lot. I've been through quite a bit, and this is good medicine for us, but as well for y'all to be able to share your burdens with us. We all have our emails. There's always ways that we can guide or do anything that for this, and to share your burden as well. And if you're not a part of a community, of a church, of believers, don't hold it inside. It's just like, in Matthew, it talks about taking your burdens to Christ, because his yoke is light and his yoke is easy, and he will take those burdens from you. And like in Galatians 6, it was the when I was speaking to you about you earlier, it says, brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by some sin, burden, you could put anything else you want, because sin it covers a lot, a small word that covers a lot of stuff that we go through every day, emotional as well as physical. And you who are godly, us that walk in Christ or strive for that every day, should gently and humbly help that person back into the right path, back into the light, to share that burden. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself, because it's very easily done.
Oh, yeah.
I know with me, I had to separate myself from a long time before I could even help my friends through their drug problems, because we are flesh, just as we are spirit, and I needed to know for myself that I wouldn't fall back into that, being and helping those with those problems as well, because that can happen. So be sure that you don't let yourself fall into that same temptation or that same burden that you're trying to help that other person with. And to share, and here it is verbatim in verse 2 of Galatians 6, share each other's burdens, and in this way you obey the law of Christ. Because that was the whole purpose. Christ came and shed his blood and washed us in that beautiful blood to take away our burdens, to strip us of all of that sin, all of that iniquity, all of that poison that we ourselves, long time ago with Adam, put ourselves into that separation. And we really need to know that community is important. And it's just like I don't know, I'm a big fighter of pop culture, and that's one of the tools that I personally believe that the world, Lucifer, sin, the darkness that we face every day, blinds us from community, from love, from Christ, and takes our eyes away from who we truly are.
Well, I want to add to that too. I think that society is very negative, and the negativity sells. The news programs, a lot of the court cases that you hear about, the big court cases, the O.J. Simpson cases, all the huge cases, the news reporting is not going to tell you the positives of that, because the positive stuff does not sell. And this is where the No More Dirty TV show comes in with Brother Fred on the CW network. It's called No More Dirty TV because he wants to leave a mark on the world that says, look at where you're at in life, and instead of complaining that you have that high mortgage, think of it as a blessing, because there's a lot of people that can't even afford to have a mortgage. And I think we can all apply this to our own lives. In my life, I can remember for a long time from a little girl when I was introduced to the Bible and who God and Jesus was. I knew nothing, just that there was a God and a Jesus, and this was the book of life, and this is how things should be. And I prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed because I believed in what I was told. And none of my prayers were answered in my mind. Because, as a little kid, you have this mindset of a superhero is going to come down, it's going to save the day, and it's going to prevent anything bad from happening to you. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed, and got to a point where at 10 years old, I had a great hate for God because I felt like my prayers weren't answered. But now as an adult, when I look back, and I look at all the people that he put in my life that taught me the things that I needed to know and needed to have placed in my heart and in my spirit to be able to grow into the woman that I am today walking in the world. Those were blessings. Those are blessings from him. You know, a lot of people weren't blessed enough to have certain people in their life because they didn't ask for it, or they didn't see it, or they didn't choose to accept it when it was given to them, you know. So I think even like in everything what you were just saying, it all goes back to you always turn to God when you're making a decision, and when you're, instead of sitting here complaining about, oh my God, I'm always sick and blah blah blah, well, you know, why not go to God and say, you know, thank you for my life, and thank you for helping me to heal. Be positive that you know that he is going to help you heal, because the more positive energy you put on you, the more you're going to get out.
Exactly.
You know, if you live in a life where you're negative and, oh, this is terrible and blah 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 blah, the more negativity you pour into you, the more negativity is going to come out, and other people are going to see that, and then all of a sudden you're surrounded with negative people. And you're talking about like community. Community does not have to be a church. A lot of people are not strong enough in themselves, or they're very intimidated by a church environment, or they just are to the point where they're hurting where they don't know where to go. I'm not saying church is a bad thing, by no means, you know, because I'm hooked up with several different churches and several different ministries. But if you just have that person in your life, whether it's a big brother or a father figure or a girls' night or a guys' night where you shoot pool, and you have, you know, I've got so many people that I confide in, even Jeremy being one of them, you know, when you need that person to talk to, that's outside of your normal box of people, you know, your spouse or whatever, you know, if you need guidance in a situation, have that person, you know, build that.
It's very important to have somebody to be accountable to.
That's right, that's exactly right.
And somebody that's, you know, is not going to judge you. I tend to always go back to my wife, but
that's good. You can bring your wife on this.
I mean, it's someone that I've been able to be that friend. That we don't judge each other, and because it's such a wholesome love. It's the closest I've ever found to what I've felt with God's love, and I know that I can be accountable to her. It's not that she's the only person I'm accountable to, because I have other brothers that are very dear to me that I try to keep myself accountable to as well, and
we need that, because
you do. Even
though you have that relationship with your spouse, when something does come up between you and your spouse, and you need advice from another person, someone to hold you accountable, you need that father figure, that male influence in your life to guide you and to hold you accountable, according to God's word.
Amen. And along with pop culture, you brought up the man or an authority figure. Pop culture is also trying to take that out of the frame. I don't know why the attack is on fathers, men, that authoritative figure, and they're trying to diminish it. But a father's love is some of the greatest love. A mother's love is some of the greatest love. And I really feel it's very important to hang on to that father's love, because that's what the Bible teaches us, is there is that hierarchy, there is that accountability, there is that need for that bond, and I pray for all of the families out there that God's love be shined in all of your lives, and any schism, any emotional scars, any problems that might have arose in anybody's family, that be healed, because it's very important to keep that family intact, and that love and the forgiveness.
You know, I think one of the most important things as parents that we can do is to love and respect each other. Even in the event that a divorce happens, and I don't advocate divorce, but it happens. I've been divorced. I'm not proud of that, but I think the most important thing you can do for your children is to love and respect the other parent, regardless of the situation.
Amen.
And I when I would go to my dad complaining about my mom, he would say, you're going to respect your mother and you're not going to badmouth her. And I do the same thing with my own child. You know, that, because that is how you teach your child love and respect. And that is the most important thing in keeping your kids grounded in your relationship. Because if you're bad-mouthing the other parent, it tells your kid, oh, I can't go to them, I can't trust them, you know, and they're going to get it from both sides. And it causes a great divide in the family. And, you know, if it doesn't work out between you and your spouse, that's between you and your spouse. That is not between the children.
Yeah, and anytime you build a schism, you're opening up that womb for the devil to come in.
Right.
And build an even bigger.
Yeah, right. I can remember my daughter thinking it just the strangest thing, because when her father and I divorced, I would get, you know, t-shirts and stuff at work, and I never wore that stuff, and I wasn't dating, so I would call him up and say, hey, you know, I got these t-shirts for you, and he'd be like, oh, hey, thanks, you know. But my daughter was like, my parents are so weird, because she was around a lot of her friends whose parents were divorcing and they were fighting, and now that she's older, she appreciates that because she sees it, and she's like, you know, my parents were cool. They made sure that I came first. And
Well, everything in this world, once you understand God's whole plan, everything works for the greater good.
oh yeah,
You made everybody for a reason. It's just like my divorce. I didn't have to go through the kids stuff and all that. But because of that, I truly found what love really was. And
because you learned what it wasn't in in your behavior and in hers. You know what I mean? How they both work together.
And they did, and a beautiful thing came out of it. She's successful now, married. I don't know all about her, but I pray that she was able to find what I found on the backside of it.
Yeah.
And that's what really matters. Everything that happened for a reason, and what I found that reason to be is I truly understood what love, accountability, passion, all that really truly is. And I was able to be blessed with that lesson in my life. And I was able to grow. Each one of us, I guess, needed a growth lesson.
Yeah.
And we needed each other, evidently, in that moment for that lesson to be birthed in our lives. And blessed be it did.
Yeah.
Just because you see something as a curse in your life, everything does work for the greater good. If you continually take it to God, now you can dwell on it and you can bring Lucifer right on in.
Because he is going to see where your weaknesses is. When you pray, Satan hears your prayers just like God hears them.
He's
and
right there.
He's right here all the time. And when he sees a lead in, he's going to jump on it. So it's really important when you have something that's really weighing on your heart and it's a burden to you, that you immediately say, Satan, step back, because I'm going to put this in God's hands, and then just pray to God. Even if you're struggling with forgiving someone, pray to God. God, I need strength and help in forgiving this person. Absolutely.
Because the more that you hold that burden, whatever it might be, physical, emotional,
it's a virus.
It
Yes.
really can become, and it can spread to others if you bring it to them like that. Now, if you bring it to them openly, I need help with this, and you always want use discernment and pray for discernment as to who you should take it to. I would always, like, mine was my mother, just because my mother was a preacher and somebody that I knew was deep and rooted in the Word. It was a little bit easier for me to go to my mom and go, Mom, blah, you know. And I knew that my mom wouldn't judge me, even though you know she was my mother and this and that. She was able to take it and not just look at me like, that's my son, oh God, don't go to hell, you know. She was able to actually look at the problem and help me and give me word and encouragement to work my way through it. So it's very important that you use somebody like that. Don't run to the world, because you're running right back into where your burden started in the first place, as it starts in the world. So run to the Word, the cross.
To somebody that has that same mission in life. You know, they want to live according to what God's word says. It's the standard basic 10 commandments. It's really that easy. You know, if you go back and you look at the 10 commandments,
Yes.
it's really that easy. But that's who you need to be getting your advice from. And or find an organization, even if there's so many organizations, even online nowadays, if you start following the ones online, you know, send them, ask them questions. You know, find yourself a person or an organization or a place that you can go, even if you choose to remain anonymous, to seek help.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with being anonymous.
No, not at all.
Especially
We get anonymous emails all the time.
Yeah, especially as being a baby in Christ. You know, there was a lot of stuff that I went through. Well, it's like my testimony video. There were things I said in that even, you know, some people in the circle of life that know me today don't know everything that I've been through. Because I don't feel like you don't have to, you know, you don't have to dig up bones every time you meet somebody. Because who you are today is way more important than who you were. But it is good to, you know, not forget where God brought you out of. But yeah, anonymous is completely okay because it's between you and God. I mean, the whole accountability thing is that community and that brotherhood, and that bond with that other person. But especially if you know, if you're shy or you know, like me, and some things I was very ashamed of. You don't have to push stuff out there. It's only to God that you really need to bear your wholeness too. But we're all here as the community of Christ to help and to serve and to be those hands and feet and mouth and ears of God. And you know, part of it daily I see the church really striving to be that, and part of which I see the church being that building that we go to on Sunday mornings. So I pray that side, that really the feet, the hands, the eyes and the ears expands every day. And through meeting you again and coming in contact, I truly see that those legs and hands and eyes and ears, especially the ears, I will go back to what I said in the testimony video, listening is very important.
Yeah, especially to elderly people. Well, we're running out of time here today, and I want to thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank you for being here today, because you know I always get something out of our shows. You're just awesome. He rocks. I also want to say thanks to Blake at Dunkin' Donuts out here.
Yes.
231. We love our Dunkin' Donuts. All y'all know that. But I want to give a kudos to him for the coffee and the cups, and for supporting us and even our live events here. If you have anything that you would like to share with us, or you have a topic that you would like us to cover, please shoot us an email and we'll be glad to cover the topic. If you have a specific personality, it may not be Jeremy, it may be Brother Fred, it may be Jeremy, it may be Rachel, who knows. But if you have a specific person, you know, let us know who that person is. We know you get attached to people's personalities. That's why I have all these great people on the show, because I don't know who to pick. I just pick them all. Because I just have so many fabulous friends. But we would love to hear your comments, so please feel free to share with us. And we want to thank you for tuning in to Podcast.